We're here with a group of panelists. This is Dr. Colonel Arnold, Damon Arnold, and also attorney Ernesto Borges, Rochelle Crump, and Sean Claiborne, and we will be discussing several topics. We also have our illustrious leader, Cliff Kelly, on the line as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to discuss first with Ernesto Borges, the esteemed attorney here in Chicago. ABC World News has Defense Secretary Esper effectively banned Confederate flag from U.S. military base. Take it off, Ernesto.
Yeah, how you doing, Doc? How's everybody doing?
Good.
Great.
I love that. Yeah.
It sounds like my publicist. And I'm sorry to hear about your loss, Doc. I'm so sorry.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, he didn't ban the Confederate flag.
Oh.
What he did is he put out a list of sanctioned flags, and the Confederate flag was not one of the sanctioned flags.
Ah.
So it wasn't as if he said, okay, the Confederate flag is banned. He never even mentioned the Confederate flag. I guess he didn't want to get the president irate. So he said, and he's a military man, Esper himself. I think he's a West Pointer and spent a lot of time in active duty, actually. But he just gave a list of, states can put their flags up. Some of our allies can have flags up. Other American territories and so forth can put their flags up. But he eliminated, he didn't mention the Confederate flag as being one of the sanctioned flags. So he kind of did the same effect, but he didn't ban it.
Right.
And he didn't notice it. And it's about time because, I mean, when you think, I know Cliff, you were at Fort Bragg, which is the largest military complex in the world. We're home of the Rangers and the Special Forces and 82nd Airborne, 101st Airborne. And I was at Fort Polk. For training, and that was named after a Confederate general also at Fort Hood and Fort Lee, Robert E. Lee, certainly head of the Confederacy. And they shouldn't have ever been named after these Confederate generals.
That's true.
And it took all of this time to, and I didn't know Polk and Bragg and Beauregard and Hood, all named after Confederate generals. So it's about time that they change the name of those forts and also not allow that flag to fly, because it's just a symbol of racism and of slavery, and they would claim, of course, that it's just their heritage, the Southern heritage. Well, their heritage is a heritage of enslaving people.
That's true.
And in humanity to other people. So I don't know if they're so proud about that. But it's a good thing, moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
It's one interesting thing there, Counselor, that if you really are involved in military science and tactics, one of the best things to read is about the Civil War. And the reason for it is that so many of those...
The mic's off. Go on and have the conversation.
Generals that were running, one side or the other.
Y'all talk it out while the mic is off.
They went to school together.
Oh, well, yeah, they went to West Point. I mean, Lee went to West Point.
Exactly.
Lee had to make his decision as to whether to go with the South or the North, but he was a graduate of West Point, which, of course, is in the North.
That's right. They went to West Point, and it was very interesting because they both sides knew what the other was trained to do.
Right.
So you're right on point.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were a lot of decisions to be made, and I'm sure family members, I have family members in the South, and I'm sure that happened with the generals and the soldiers, that you had family members on the other side.
Sure.
In the South, you had family members on the North, the generals had, and classmates and all of that. But certainly it was for a nasty cause of perpetuating slavery, and it's something that needed to end. This country started out as an experiment in a sense, because there had never been any country with this type of a constitution, and the Constitution states the Constitution not only as a document, but the Constitution itself of this country was an experiment, and slavery, unfortunately, was part of their experiment. And some say that it was going to be faded out later on, but they needed it at the time. And of course, the Southern economy depended upon that. We helped to build the wealth of this country and the world.
Yeah, thank you, Ernesto. That was a really a great summary about that, and I'm glad you really mentioned that the effective ban, on effectively banned it or de facto. So that's fantastic. Glad that happened. But we're moving on to another topic now, and we're going to talk about the Navy Times mentioned that the military's COVID-19 cases are growing at twice the nationwide rate. So they seem to be escalating more than what we see in the general public. So more than 4,100 service members have tested positive for coronavirus since July 1st, according to the Defense Department's latest statistics, a rise of about 33% in the last 10 days. That is more than twice the rate of growth nationwide during the same time period, 16%. As the U.S. More than once broke its daily records for new coronavirus cases lately. We actually saw in the military department nationwide, we had 16,637 positive cases, with 381 people being hospitalized. 3 died from this virus, and 7,011 have recovered. There's a 32% increase since July 1st of this year, of 2020, in cases among military department members worldwide, our service members. But the contractors also saw an increase as well. We had 1,541 positive cases, with a 32% increase since July 1st. 106 were hospitalized, 10 died, and 603 recovered. So that also sometimes contractors are our retired veterans as well. I'm not sure if they counted that in those numbers, but I'm pretty sure these were part of the contractor group. But our civilian population also, 2,212 were positive, and their dependents. So that means some husbands and wives and that type of thing. So 31% increase since July 1st, with 218 hospitalized, 23 have died, and 1,371 have recovered. So this is really threatening our national security. It's threatening the base. And we just recently talked about, homeless veterans and their need to be tested as well. So we really need to start jumping on this and making sure that we're putting all the things in place we need: the social distancing, the mask. It's back in World War I, at least we were wearing masks in the foxholes, right, when they were throwing the poison gas. But we need to have those masks on again and do the social distancing. And I think I've been hearing some really good things from the military about pushing that forward. The infection rate currently among service members is now about 0.8%, compared to 0.9% nationwide. That is the closest the military's infection rate has come to the general public's in the U.S., and double what it was in mid-June. And then we know we had that one situation with the naval battleship where they had an outbreak on board, and the commander was relieved of duty for trying to protect our veterans. So we need to do more to protect our veterans as we're going forward. That is essential. And so
didn't they fire him and try to do something?
Yes, sir, they did. And they brought him back. They brought him back and then let him go again. So it was like a double hit on him. And so we really need to have people who are watching that and protecting our military service members who are doing the right thing. And we need that more and more. But we're going to now move on to another topic, military defense. Black U.S. Army cadets say they were called N-word, and I guess we know what the N stands for, and shunned for reporting discrimination at West Point. And on the phone we have Rochelle Crump, who's one of our members of our group. And she's going to give us a little bit of a background on that and why that was so important to pay attention to.
Certainly. Hi, Rochelle.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good.
I wish one thing is that they would stop saying the N word and just say what it stands for, and make it sound just like it feels.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of times we tiptoe around what is being said.
Yes.
And I think the more that we emphasize how harsh and ugly it is, maybe people will think secondly about using it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one way of looking at it. And, this was a hard article to read because it is just really sad that the same old story is still happening all around the nation.
Yes.
And, it's not that I thought things had gone away. I just thought they were getting better at some point.
Yes.
And when you look at, our men and women serving the country and, being excited about being in places that basically are famous. They're renowned. They're like, anybody wants to get into West Point because of this history of being the greatest, if you will. Not the history of what goes on in there, obviously, but because it's always been a great honor to be at West Point. And those men and women who served there and what they endured that were, things that no one really knew about until this article came out. And what that says is that they've either been ignored and or they've been silent.
Yes.
And reading, when you think about the cadet who was the first black female to become a captain there and what she went through when she got a note on her door with her picture and they had a monkey in her, where her face was, they had a monkey instead, and how that may have made her feel, and me then that she had, number one, met the devil, and then number two, that things have not changed anywhere in America, because it speaks volume as to how people who have integrity in which they say you have when you go and get selected for a place like West Point, because they do test you on your character. They do all types of things to vet you and validate you being accepted. So how does this happen in a place like that?
Rochelle, you hit on a really good point because, at West Point, it's not just, the N-word, but it's also homophobic statements, it's statements against women. And one of the things is that West Point generates a lot of our generals, the people who are going to be in leadership positions in our military structure.
Absolutely.
And if that is allowed to happen...
Corporate. They go into the corporate world also.
Yes.
It's a core of the old... Yeah, it's the core of the old power and privilege.
Yes.
That's the core of it all. It was never intended to be diverse in the first place.
Yes.
So you still have those antiquated rules and those antiquated, things that they do there that basically don't include a lot of those who are there.
And we should be protecting everyone who lives in the borders of this country. That's what your oath is about, right? Each of us took an oath to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The thing is, Rochelle, you say antiquated, but that somehow
it's history. I know it's part of history,
but it's not history. It's the current.
It is.
It should be antiquated, but it's not.
But the mere fact that it still exists is because either it's been ignored by those who have made complaints and or because they have been silent. And now they're writing like a 40-page policy proposal, and it's a proposal. It should have been a demand. It's not like we want to even negotiate bad behavior. We want to demand that there are changes there.
I think you hit it on the head, though, Rochelle, is that the problem is that they don't see black people and people who are disenfranchised as people of power. When you have an incident where someone is disenfranchised to someone else because they feel like they can get away with that. So until we as a community start to garner more power, wealth, and prosperity amongst our communities, then you have that kind of fear. Think of it like when we look at other groups, other communities. You have to commend what's going on with how the Jews have basically come up from the Holocaust. They have so much power and wealth. So when you see anything happens against the Jewish community, you see a huge backlash. You see a huge rally cry to stop that because they have positions of power. black
And
power on our end. We're trying to get to that level. We still have to do a lot on our end to try to get to that level of pulling back some of that power. We were some of the people that built this country. We were not invisible. We're present.
Just give me a sign when you're ready for it.
Let that be known, and let people know that you can't just pull this off. They do this to us. You can't just get over on us like this.
And that is a good reason why those flags need to come down, why those monuments need to come down, because they're constant reminders of those who think that they have power and privilege. Constant reminders of them. And they believe in what they did. They believe in it. And when you start talking about policies don't change people. People will only change when they believe in why they should change and what they are doing wrong. That's the only time the change is going to be applicable. And so we have
and if they fear also that they have a consequence for doing something wrong. If they see someone has power and they see that there's a consequence if I do something wrong in front of that person, that makes them think twice about doing it.
And if you become a leader, you have to lead by example. You can't be leading looking into the past. Yeah.
But you know what? As a mother, I would have so much concern about my daughter going into the military right now. It's almost equate to the twin of Me Too and the sexual assault that's going on in the military. And then you have to also deal with, the racism and the sexism and all the other isms that just keep that stain on that facility.
But those things are everywhere.
Oh, absolutely they are, but they should never be on the front line. We're not going to compromise that.
Yes.
We should not compromise that.
And we have a lot of good military members out there, too.
It exists in our civilian society, and it exists in our military society.
Yeah.
So, you don't escape by going into the military. It's still here.
Yeah. And we have a lot of people who are responsible, who actually do step up to the plate. And, and coming forward, I've witnessed it, my counterparts who were white, who were, but they stood up to the plate and showed real coverage and real strength in saying this is wrong. You stop now.
Absolutely.
And we need to see more of that in our military system, because we have some good people throughout the system.
Absolutely.
Keep in mind, the military was the first institutions in America. Right. The military was one of the first institutions in America that actually had racial integration.
That's right.
Because of the fact that they realized, hey, we cannot win wars if we are a divided army. We have to be united. We have to do the right thing that makes sense. We are stronger when we work together. And we have to get over that hump again. We got to understand that women and LGBT and people of all races, all of us have strength. We bring something to the table.
Yes.
We are stronger when we're united.
Okay, Sean Claiborne, it sounds like you're biting at the bit. I know you got the next segment. And we have one clip from NSNBC, the news raw story audio clip. It's if I'm Trump, I'm scared right now. Trump's taxes will likely come out before election, and we'll let you comment on that clip once we play it.
Let's bring back our panel into this conversation, and back with us once again is Neil Katyal. Neil, I want to read for you, if I can, a sentence from Justice Brett Kavanaugh, obviously appointed by the president. He writes in the concurring opinion, a very important line. I want to get your read on it. In our system of government, as this court has often stated, no one is above the law. That principle applies, of course, to a president. And to Carol's point earlier, this was a justice that was appointed by President Trump. We know he expects unconditional loyalty. How do you read that sentence from Justice Kavanaugh?
Well, I'm glad you started there, because I've been listening to our reporting for the last half hour, and I love my MSNBC colleagues and analysts, but I profoundly disagree with almost everything that's been said. This is not a mixed bag or a victory for Trump. Trump shouldn't be happy about this. The fact is he lost. He lost resoundingly 7-2, including his own appointees to the court, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch. The court, by 7 justices, rejected his broad claims of immunity. And for a president who's sworn to take care that the laws be faithfully executed in our Constitution, the Supreme Court is saying these are bogus claims. Now, it's true, the case is now going to go back to New York and to the D.C. courts, but the key question is what's left. And with the Manhattan case, very little. It's very hard, I think, for Trump to assert any form of immunity. With Congress, maybe some more, he's got some more arguments back in the trial court, but nobody thought he was going to win, that the House was going to win immediate release of the the tax returns or anything like that. So this is, I think, the best that the challengers thought. The only way in which Trump won anything today is he now possibly can delay this after Election Day and delay getting all the information to New York. But I think that's doubtful. Look, these cases can move very quickly. The Nixon tapes case moved in a matter of 3 months. Bush versus Gore, start to finish, the election dispute of 2000, 36 days. This is all about the election of 2020, and I expect Cy-Vance to move incredibly fast. And, Pete described that Trump as having a little shield left in New York against Cy-Vance. It's not a little shield, it's a paper-thin shield at best.
30 seconds.
So I think it's totally possible for all of this to come out before the 2020 election in terms of New York's prosecutors getting this information and acting on it. And so I would caution all those folks who've been listening to this for the last half hour and say, this is a back. It is not. If I'm Donald Trump, I am scared right now. Whether or not it comes before or after the 2020 election, Cy-Vance is going to get this material. And
2, 1.
Need to go back.
Okay,
now,
Sean,
right?
explain.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear the audio, but I read the clip earlier.
Yes.
This is the thing. This is the reason why Trump says over and over again that he really loves the poorly educated. This article that came out, and this because it really speaks to that in a lot of ways. Because to me, there's a lot of misdirection and a lot of confusion about the facts of what's really going on. There was an assertion that somehow this court decision had a lot of landmark surprises, which is not really the case. We have to go back and look at the fact that really what this is about all goes back to Stormy Daniels and goes back to what Trump did before he ran for president. That's what this whole thing is about. It's highly unlikely that we will see any of his tax returns or any of his financial records prior to the election. Just the way the process is played out. And we also can kind of baited and switched, and to a large extent, not just because of what Trump is doing, but also because the media is not focusing in on the real victories and the real meanings of what's going on. The critical issue is that the fact that the Supreme Court told Trump that he is not above the law. That was the key, the number one thing. The best thing that came out of this whole situation was that one thing. There's two arguments that came forth to the Supreme Court. One was by the House. Did the House have the right to subpoena his records and compel him to bring his tax documents and his financial records to the public? That was actually pushed back to the courts. That was not a victory for the American people. That was pushed back to the lower courts, which gives Trump more time to argue and play games and send his attorneys back out to fight for him and make sure that none of that information really gets either muddied or gets so confusing that nobody pays attention. The attorney from New York, from Manhattan, Cy-Vance, who brought the other argument, he's trying to basically show that, which is really the biggest deal, is this guy might have broke the law and done something criminal before he ran for president. And so Trump, what he tried to do was say that he didn't have any obligation as president of the United States, being the supreme leader of America, that he could just basically ignore any subpoena because he didn't want to deal with it. So the Supreme Court said that 7-2, that you're not above the law, you have to acknowledge these subpoenas. But the House, he told them, hey, you can't just get the president's records, you have to have a compelling argument as to why you want the records. Now it goes back to the lower courts. So what
are they going to do if he doesn't turn them over, Sean?
What is he going to do if they don't turn them over?
Huh?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
He's not going to turn them over. Even if he loses the election, he's in office until January the 20th. And he's not going to turn anything over, not as long as he's in office. He may not even know.
We don't even know if this is the election. Like he's been doing, and he's going to ignore the whole thing.
Ignore it. He's going to ignore the
And the thing is, but we don't even know if he's going to even willingly leave office if he doesn't win the election. We'll have to send a National Guard in to drag this butt out of the White House.
Yes,
that's for sure.
I mean, that's the crazy part about it. I mean,
if it's close, he's not going to leave. If it's a resounding,
got 2 minutes, guys.
Biden, maybe he'll leave. But if it's a close call, he probably will have to be removed.
Okay.
Right, exactly.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to move on to our illustrious person here, Glenda Smith, and she's going to close out the show. But great information, and we have many more topics to come in the future.
Absolutely. Great public policy
You folks did a
roundtable.
great job.
Thank
Great
you,
job.
Sean. Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, Ernesto.